and welcome to Spanglish World and H.E.R Network on Zingo TV channel 250 and 251. Remember to download the Zingo TV app on the App Store at the App Store, and make sure that you rate the app, leave a comment. The app is free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire Sticks, Roku and Roku Sticks on all smart TVs from 2016 forward. So welcome to a brand new installment of the Wellness Show. Welcome to my, I guess I can call you my coach, colleague, Leslie Zann, who has is coming to the first installment of this show, and I'm so happy that you're joining us. And you just had a book launch last Tuesday, and it is an international bestseller already. Outrageous achievement. So take it away.
Well, I appreciate that very much. Yes, I'm quite thrilled to say that the book launched on Tuesday. In 21 hours, we were a #1 international bestseller. And truly, Julie, I sit before you a bundle of humility and gratitude. Yes, and the response from the book has been so positive, overwhelming, actually. They've moved me to tears many times. So I'm quite thrilled to have the book out into the world.
Well, I am looking forward to getting my own copy as well. So I guess let's start with, like, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, the whole theme is learning to move through our fears and limiting beliefs and to find our inner courage to move in the direction of our dreams, to design the life that we dream of. And I'd have to say my personal obstacles in life certainly played a key role. I've been through, like all of us, I've had certain times in my life that were life-changing and impactful. I was bankrupt in my late 20s, my construction business. I had my house burned down a few years later and lost all my stuff. I've been through divorce. I've been through illness. So as I learned to move through these obstacles, there were so many lessons. And as I would coach and train and share these lessons with my audience, I'm a speaker and a business coach, their response was so powerful. Their visceral reactions, their immediacy to take action. I just knew I was striking a chord. And after all these years of speaking and training and coaching, I took some of my favorite tips and concepts and strategies and made the decision to put them in the book. And the result was outrageous achievement.
Well, I mean, it's not just a little bit of coaching, it's 3 decades of teaching and coaching and presenting on leadership and business and mindset. So you have worlds of experience. And I'm sure with all that experience, you've also seen certain patterns and trends when you're working with people. People are hitting maybe the similar fears or similar obstacles in terms of mindset. And so obviously it makes it a lot, you almost have like this bird's eye view of what pitfalls people most commonly hit and how to overcome those pitfalls, right?
Yeah. We all go through the same thing. Like, we're all connected. Anyone who finds the courage to have a dream and go on a journey, we're going to go through similar parts of the journey together. We're going to experience failure, and we're going to experience great successes, and we're going to experience betrayal and frustration, but then we're going to have celebrations and empowerment. So if you're going to go on any journey, you get the opportunity to experience all the ups and downs of the journey. And I've learned for myself that what really keeps my compass true north is my commitment to personal development. Jim Rohn always said, work harder on yourself than your business or your job. Work harder. And I tell the audience, work harder on yourself than any vision, any goal. Work harder on yourself. Keep your head in the game. And that I believe we can overcome any obstacle and continue to move forward.
Mm-hmm. So I think it would be good to go back to some of the obstacles that you faced and how you mustered the courage to go through, because I think we're all, like you said, we all face obstacles and challenges. But what is it that really differentiates the people who, fall down 3 times, get up 4, versus the people who fall down 3 times and just never get back up again?
Yeah. Well, first I'll tell you a quote that inspires me, and everybody's heard the quote, although not everybody knows where it came from. So was a famous football coach in the 40s named Vince Lombardi, and he has a lot of famous quotes, but one of his famous quotes are, "It's not whether you get knocked down, it's whether you get back up." Mm-hmm. So I shifted just a little bit. It's not whether you get knocked down, because I know if I'm living, I'm going to get knocked down. It's whether I get back up transformed. And what does that look like? So to your point, do I get up? Number one, do I get up? And then number two, when I get up, am I running over here as a victim, less than, broken, or am I going over to this side of dusting myself off? I learned some lessons. I am stronger. I'm more empowered. I am continuing on the journey. And that is a choice. And I believe the 2 aspects of this are not only the pace we get up, like you say, some people don't even get up, the pace we get up, like how long do we stay down? Is it for a day? Is it for months? Is it for years? So part of the component is the pace that we get up. And then number 2, it's our perception of what getting knocked down really meant, right? Is that failure or that betrayal or that frustration mean I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, I can't go the distance? Or can we shift our mindset to the fact of, hey, that hurt a lot and that wasn't fun, and hopefully let's not repeat that too often. And yet it will not, it's made me stronger. I learned lessons. I'm failing forward. Mm-hmm. And so if you want a personal experience of that, really the end of my marriage. And I was married for 15 years. And for 15 years, I heard, I love you more every day. I love you more every day. I love you more every day, until evidently one day, and came home from a speaking gig to discover foot-long red hair all over the house. And we know that's not coming from me. Now, this is 10 years ago, so I'm not going to start crying. So don't, I've put this to bed effectively over the years. But at that moment, and then I confronted my husband, he had to go. And when he walked out that door, I went fetal on the floor in the kitchen, like rolled up into a little ball, sobbing on the kitchen floor. And even at that most knocked down moment of betrayal and grief, and just really surprise, there was this little voice in the back of my head that I could still hear through my sobs that said, Leslie, this can allow you to be the best Leslie if you choose to. And over the years, that voice has served me well. That voice spoke to me when my house was burning down. That voice spoke to me when I got very sick and had to go on some pretty heavy meds. That voice has spoke to me every time I've had a major obstacle or a failure, that it's a choice. It doesn't mean I don't grieve, Julie. Doesn't mean I'm not sad. Doesn't mean I'm not beat down. Doesn't mean I'm not at that proverbial rock bottom, but I know it's a choice to get back up. And I know it's a choice on who I'm going to be as I process the lessons. So going back to the divorce, I knew for sure I didn't want to be that bitter, angry, mad, betrayed ex-wife. Like I knew I didn't want to be her. So I did a lot of work on forgiveness. I did a lot of work on, just because John doesn't love me anymore, I'm still lovable.
Right.
Now, this all didn't happen the next day. I can assure you that. Okay.
You didn't flip the switch.
It wasn't just a switch, but it was a choice. That this was where I ultimately wanted to wind up, where I could have authentic forgiveness for him, which I do, and authentic love and respect for myself, which I do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not an easy task. Forgiveness, like from a personal development standpoint, I think forgiveness is probably one of the hardest things that most people find they really, really struggle with. Like, and I find that with a lot of people, they carry those, like, let's face it, a lot of people had not great childhoods. And that becomes the theme, the stage on which they build their life. And they block certain things out of their memory, and yet there's this weak foundation, and they're trying to build the structure of their life on this very weak foundation, but they haven't done any of the forgiveness work, and it carries them into relationships, into work, into all of these things. And so what would you say, or what do you think are some good ways to go about working on forgiveness?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. First of all, my lesson through the experience, I'll jump to my lesson and then I'll tell you how I got there. My lesson is forgiveness is for the forgiver. Mm-hmm. Forgiveness is for me, to set me free. By not forgiving, I don't change the situation. By not forgiving, my husband's still gone. He's still left that way, right? I mean, by not forgiving doesn't change anything, but by forgiving, forgiveness sets me free to be the woman I truly want to be. And how I learned this, a friend recommended a book called How Do I Forgive You by Stacey Abrams. And it was so powerful. She taught, Janice Abrams, How Do I Forgive You? And she talked about how so many of us want to jump right to unconditional forgiveness and how hard that is for us. Like, I wasn't ready to go to unconditional forgiveness, right? And she says there's certain things that have to happen to go to unconditional forgiveness. The other person has to be prepared to unconditionally work with you, which he wasn't prepared to do. So this wasn't a possibility. She talked about starting with acceptance. Acceptance of the situation. Wow, that set me free and gave me the strength really to begin to move into the whole process. Just starting with acceptance that this is what happened. Another thing I read in a book also was to think of John as a little boy and know that he's just doing his best, and think of me as a little girl knowing I was just doing my best, and really coming to understand that I know he didn't just wake up and go, man, I'm going to really hurt her the best I can. I know that wasn't his intention. He fell out of love. He fell in love with someone else. I couldn't say that for 2 years. So I do not say that in any easy, trite way. But fundamentally now I can look back and know he didn't wake up and say, man, I'm going to hurt her as hard as I can. That wasn't the situation. As I moved through all this stuff, and for anybody listening, if you're going through this did not happen overnight. Okay. This happened over years of working on this.
Right. But you were willing to do the work. And I think that is always the key, is that when we've been wronged, it's a lot easier to get into victim mode, but it's way more powerful to take charge of your emotions and how you feel. And like sometimes in sort of spiritual circles, they call it cleaning up your side of the street. You take responsibility for whatever your part may have been consciously or unconsciously, and move through what you can move through, just so you can carry on with your life. Because things happen, things do happen, and we can't change what's happened, but we have to find a way to move on and thrive. And I think that from a standpoint of coaching and helping people, it really helps to have one's own story. Like it humanizes all of us. Like when we know someone's really gone through something, then like your book has nuggets of wisdom, and they're not just something you read somewhere else. It's because you actually walked the path, and the path was very difficult at times. And so I think that's really, really important, because there's so much information out there. And I think that not necessarily everything that's out there is something that somebody's applied in their own world or in their own life. It just sounds good, right? And we kind of want to get away from that. So in your book, you talked about settling, and that many women want so much in their life, and yet they haven't taken the first step. And so how does settling play a role?
I've done so much thinking about this, and it began with my realization of how I was settling in so many important areas of my life. And I believe settling is pervasive, and it shows itself through just a feeling of dissatisfaction or frustration or disappointment of where we are in life. And I believe we settle in all areas of our life. We settle in our health. We settle in our relationships. We settle in our creative expression. We settle in our career. And I believe the number one reason we settle is lack of awareness. We don't realize we're settling until something major happens to change the status quo. For example, I discover my husband's having an affair. Or you go to the doctor and he says, if you don't make this shift, there's going to be major consequences. Or you put on the pair of jeans and they don't zip up. Right? I mean, these different things happen, and we realize we've been settling. So first it starts with awareness, and then the decision is, okay, I'm settling, or I've been settling because things have been good enough, or conversely, not painful enough, right? So we stay in the relationships because it's not exactly right, but it's not bad enough. Or we don't exercise because this size jeans is okay. It's not really where I want to be. Or we settle in the career because even though he doesn't pay me enough, I got a job, right? So we settle in all these different areas because it's not painful enough. And where this hit home to me is I went to a seminar and I heard Toastmaster champion speaker Craig Valentine. He was the keynoter. 10 minutes into his talk, Julie, he looks at the audience and he asks us all a question. He asks, are you letting your good enough get in the way of your great? It was like I was punched in the stomach. I started crying. I had to leave the ballroom. I cried for 45 minutes in my hotel room. I missed his whole shtick, because what else is Craig going to tell me? And that was the moment when I started working on a blueprint for my life to where I was not going to settle in these major areas in my life.
So would you say that a major obstacle in settling, well, number one is just lack of awareness.
Yes.
But I think when people do become aware, because obviously I'm a health coach and a nutritionist, and I have a lot of people reach out to me every single week. Oh yeah, like I put on the COVID-15, COVID-20, COVID whatever, and we'll have a conversation of what needs to happen and what has to change and what the process is. And I will say, go to my testimonials page. I have a 100% success rate with people I work with. And then I don't hear back from them. And it's like, I just think that the fear took over, the fear of change, the fear of, and I think also, like, this is one of the things that makes me so sad. Collectively, humanity has so much potential. And so many people fall so far below that potential. And everybody around is just kind of cruising through. And the downside of living in North America is we have a lot of, things that many parts of the world would consider luxuries. And so our life is not difficult enough. It's just comfortable. And it's so easy to just cruise through, not be healthy, not have great relationships, not have the job. I mean, I think the stat I heard is that 85% of people hate their job. And yet so many people don't make any changes.
Right. That's not bad enough. It's not uncomfortable enough. For too many people, they have to hit that proverbial rock bottom before they consider making a change. And I agree with you. What stops most people from making change is fear. Definitely. I talk about the 5 universal fears in the book: rejection, change, judgment, failure, success. So those people who call you and say they've gained weight during COVID, you say, I got 100% guarantee if you work with me, and they don't call you back, it's not painful enough. Mm-hmm. You can't want their health more for them than they want for themselves. That's a choice. Whereas I'll use myself as an example. I am more fit, more strong, more lean, more healthy now after a year of home isolation, because that was a choice. Like I don't need to add to a global pandemic and social unrest and political unrest. I don't need to add to that by gaining weight. I don't need to add to that by treating myself poorly. I don't need to add to that by not taking good care of myself. On the contrary, I can't control all that other stuff, but I can control how I take care of myself. So I've been eating better. I started cycling. I'm doing my yoga. Like, I'm more fit and healthy now than before COVID even started. That's a choice. And I think we can bring that choice into all areas of our life.
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. I think so. So you've learned that in order to lead a creative, authentic, happy life, you have to ditch people pleasing. It's impossible to make everybody like you anyway. And just be yourself. So what is your personal code on how you stay authentic and true to who you are and what you're about? And never mind the noise, because there's so much noise.
So much noise, especially when we're in the public eye as a professional speaker and as a coach and presenter. So I learned this in my 30s, or I made up this code in my early 30s when I was given a position that I did not have the experience or the maturity to do well in this position. And it was impacting me emotionally quite a bit. And I started to doubt myself and doubt my skills and doubt my abilities, doubt myself as a woman, as a person, as a professional. And I had to do something. And I one day made up this code that ended up being my shield to, not that I had to mature and not that I didn't have to get more skills and not that I didn't have to continue to be a good student, right? But I had to take charge of my thoughts through this maturing process. And so I came up with a code, 3 things. Number 1, did I tell my truth? I do a lot of core value work. So number 1, did I tell my truth? Truth is my 1 and 2 core values aren't 1 and 2. They're even, they're horizontal. Health and truth. Okay, so did I tell my truth? Number 2, did I live up to my commitments? So if I say I'm going to be there at 3, I'm there at 3. If I'm going to deliver the project, I deliver the project. So did I live up to my commitments? And number 3, did I do my best? I've never strived to be perfect. I am just striving to do my best. So if I tell my truth and live up to my commitments and do my best, no matter what happens, I can go to bed at night and know that's my code. I'm living up to it. And it helps me move through the world because I'm constantly learning new things. I'm constantly being thrown into new situations, and on purpose. I have big visions, big dreams, but this code allows me to rest easy that I'm being authentic rather than, as you say, spend all my time worrying about what other people are thinking.
Well, I mean, do you think that most people have a code, or they're just kind of winging it?
Well, I can't speak for other people. I would have to say that the people who are unhappy or dissatisfied or constantly worried about fear of judgment, or who are paralyzed about fear of judgment, who are playing small because they are so worried about what other people are going to think or say, I would have to guess that those people are probably winging it and might do better or be more empowered if they came up with some kind of code to stay true to themselves. Because as you say, no matter what we do, not everybody's going to like us, right? Not everybody's going to want to work with us. Not everybody's going to want to play with us. That's just part of life. And so when I can have no judgment on those situations and stay true to myself, I believe it allows me, number one, to be a lot more comfortable in myself, but I'm going to attract, through that good positive energy, I'm going to attract the right people that I should be working with, that I should be socializing with, that should be in my circle of life.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. I mean, I know what my sort of core values are. And so then it doesn't bother me so much. Oh, that person, you know, so yesterday, we're both Pisces. So yesterday was my birthday, and my partner, Michael, he asked me this morning, he's like, who wished you happy birthday? I'm like, well, a lot of people. And it would be, so this is kind of how I look at it. There were certain people who didn't reach out. I don't know why they didn't reach out. Maybe they're busy. Who knows? Maybe they forgot. But I also know that I've been working on myself a lot the last several months. And it's one of the things I've noticed is whenever I'm doing that work, it's interesting how people kind of fall away. Like we're no longer a vibrational match. And there was a period of my life where I would get, probably would get really upset and maybe even be in tears over it. And now I'm just like at peace with it. I'm like, well, I guess the season is over for that that relationship. Maybe they'll circle back around, maybe they won't. But I can't change who I am just to kind of have certain people fit into my life, because I would be inauthentic. I would be untrue to myself.
Yep.
So that's not who I am. So I just want to carry on with like just this whole idea of knowing your values. So, and also like, I guess a little bit going back to this whole idea of fear. I think I'm sure that you talk a lot about inner dialogue. So how important is inner dialogue when it comes to overcoming fear, getting in touch with our core values? And even, it's interesting because I started a new journal today, brand new month, brand new journal. Yeah. And it was good to put pen to paper and really think about, okay, like, what do I want to work on in my business this month? What are sort of the key things that are important to me to get done just on this day? And also recognizing like, okay, what's going on in my head? What's the dialogue? So
yeah, this is such a big topic, and so important, because I believe most people are running on autopilot and they are not conscious of their thoughts. They are reactive all day long rather than proactive. And this whole idea of inner dialogue. So for an example, I'd have your audience consider, what are some of the things that you're saying all the time? Like things that you say to yourself regularly that do not serve you. Like, I'm always late, or I can't get the guy, or I can't get the job, or I don't make enough money, or I'm going to get sick, or I can't get this weight off. Like, what are the things? I can't keep up with today's technology. What are some of the things you're saying all the time that do not serve you? Because in reality, what's happening is, whether we realize it or not, the repetition of those thoughts is literally defining us. Like we're defining ourselves by those thoughts. So the question to ask yourself is, do you want to be that person? See, that's the key here. Do you want to be that person that's always late? Do you want to be that person that can't do the new technology? Do you want to be that person that can't get the strong relationship or get the job or make the money or stay out of debt or keep your fitness level? Like, do you want to be her? And if the answer is no, then we got to stop saying that stuff. And yet you've been saying it for a long time. It's become a habit. Mm-hmm. And depending on how old you are, it's been going and repeating in your head for, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So what I recommend is first, again, change begins with awareness. So identify those thoughts that you're thinking and make the decision to start reframing them. And this is going to take some time. And I believe in little stretch reframing. So I can't get the weight off. It's not going to be, I am perfectly healthy. Like that's a big stretch for people. So I can't get the weight off. I enjoy my daily or weekly exercise. I'm empowered when I take good care of myself. I love to eat good food. I love to get out there for a walk, right? And then you work your way up to, I take good care of myself. And it's not about being skinny. It's about being fit and healthy and flexible. So that's just one example. You could use those stretch comments to shift any negative thought that's been playing for a long time. I also recommend, Julie, that you find someone that you love and that you trust, someone who can compassionately call you out. So it can be your mother, it can be your spouse, it can be your friend, like someone to every time you say, I'm always late, that they could call you out and say, I love you, but you didn't want to be the woman who's always late, right? And to remind them when they say that. So rather than continuing to give themselves permission to be late, they start saying, hey, I'm always on time. Mm-hmm. And then maybe crazy enough, I'm early, right? And they can work in that direction.
Yeah, for sure. It's, awareness and being willing to do the work. And also, I would say not having this expectation that you're going to be perfect right out of the gate, right? Like it's practice. They always say, I taught yoga for years before I transitioned into my current line of work. And in yoga is always referred to as a practice.
Right.
There's no belief that you're ever done. You're always practicing. You just show up on your mat and you just do the practice. And the whole time you're cultivating this awareness within and noticing like what is going on in the physical, mental, emotional body and what needs to be addressed. And obviously when you're doing an asana practice, you're using the poses to help you to understand that. But you can use other tools as well. And so, but the key is it all comes back to awareness. So someone can be on their mat, they can have a beautiful practice, but if they're completely tuned out, they've gone off to La La Land, there is no practice.
I love my yoga. Yoga transformed me. I do yoga 2 times a week with Renee and then a couple times on my own. We've been doing it via Zoom since COVID happened. And I'm totally present when we are. In fact, I'm doing yoga right after this interview, about an hour after this interview today. And so I agree with you. And I like to take the discipline of that practice into all areas of my life to the best of my ability, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good analogy.
For sure. So everybody wants to be happy. Like, I think ultimately that's what we're looking for, and we look for it in a myriad of ways. We think we're going to get it doing certain things and may not work out. So you have a differentiation between happiness and joy. And so what is that differentiation?
Well, and I write about this quite a bit in the book. So happiness comes to us from external situations. So I'm happy when I have the boy. I'm happy when I have the job. I'm happy if I have the money. I'm happy if my book launches well. I'm happy if people like me. Like, I'm happy if all these external things happen. But then if those things don't happen, if I don't get the guy, if I don't have the money, if I don't get the job, if I don't have the right size jean on, when those things don't happen, then I'm unhappy. And pretty soon, I'm not just unhappy because of one of those situations, I'm just unhappy, and it becomes pervasive. Where I believe joy, on the other hand, joy comes from internal. Joy is an internal flame that we keep lit. It's our compass. It's our true north. And as we focus on keeping that flame lit and shining bright, no matter what happens in life, as you said earlier, life is going to happen. When that flame of joy continues to stay lit, I can stay joyful about my life, regardless of the situations that I'm dealing with. And I believe it gives me the strength and the empowerment to do the work, as you say, to go through the obstacles, to find the courage, to pick myself up, to continue to move forward, to learn from the lessons, to, no matter what happens, to still love myself, be grateful for everything that is working in my life, and stay clear on the woman I want to be and how I want to walk through the world. And that is a flame that I keep lit on purpose.
So you have yoga, you're riding a bicycle. So what are some of the tools that you use to make sure that you're staying connected with yourself, and you're doing that? I would say it's so funny, because I've been on this path for so long that I don't even know. Like, I've been meditating now I've had a daily meditation practice since 2007.
Wow, good job.
And I do the hardcore, like, I haven't been able to do it this past year, but I usually go do 10 days of silence. That's a yearly thing. And that's my deal with my partners. I go off and I live like a monk. But it is a part of my practice. And so along with that, I've, obviously done yoga for a long time, and I have like these different tools in my toolbox. And I know if there is stuff that is coming up for me, I know, okay, am I using my tools? Maybe I need more time with certain tools, or sometimes it's time to upgrade, right? Like, I'm always open and going, okay, well, I haven't worked with somebody one-on-one in a while. Like, maybe it's time for me to go work with someone one-on-one and work through some of what's coming up for me. Because as great as the meditation might be, or as great as journaling might be, as great as my workout might be, or my yoga practice, it's not clearing away enough of what is fizzling up to the surface. And for me, it's usually if I'm getting agitated. Agitation is usually, if I'm getting agitated, or I don't tend to react outward very often, but if I feel an internal reaction coming on, I'm like, something's not right in the neighborhood.
Yep.
And I don't usually go out, but I go in and go, okay, so who do I need to work with? What's the next right step for me to move through this thing that is coming up for me?
That's so good. Well, for me, it's definitely a personal development reading, a morning practice. Like, how I start my day is one of the tools in my toolbox. So even before I get out of bed, as soon as I wake up, I get settled on my back. I take a few deep yoga breaths, and then I just go through a gratitude list in my head. I've done this every morning for years. Right? But whatever comes to mind, no right or wrong with any of this stuff, whatever comes to mind. I'm grateful it's a sunny day. I'm grateful I love my cat. I'm grateful mom got her second shot. Just whatever goes through my mind, right? And then when I'm ready to get up, I sit on the edge of bed, my feet hit the ground, and I think about being grounded. I am grounded. And then as I get up and get going, usually somewhere early in the morning, I say out loud, something magical is going to happen today. I mean, I just love that. It just makes me smile and makes me giggle. And invariably, something magical happens. Something magical is going to happen today. That's much better than going, what another crummy day, right? If it says something magical is going to happen today. So, and then I take time every morning for my morning practice, which is important, whether it's reading, an audiobook, journaling, like some personal development to get in my head and remind myself how empowered I am and how my potential is unlimited. I love my I Ching. I'll probably do an I Ching reading. So it's just different aspects of my personal development practice. I'm worth 30 minutes every morning to do something good for me. Remember that old commercial with the gal with the hair color commercial? And she says she does it because she's worth it. That's how I feel about my personal development practice. I do it because I'm worth it. And that sets the tone for my day. Like you, I also meditate. I've never done a silent retreat yet. I've done a silent dinner. I've never done a silent retreat. I've always thought I would like to do that. I believe I would like to start with a day. I don't believe I jump right into the 10-day, although I admire that very much.
Well, I think, the particular technique that I do, which is Vipassana, their intro course is 10 days, but it made sense to me when I did my first 10-day of why it's 10 days, because they're teaching you the technique day by day by day, like they're dripping it to you. Right. And so on day 10, when you finally break silence, it makes sense. And I've tried other types of meditation. I've done sound meditation and mantra and all that different things. And Vipassana was where I started, and it feels good in my body after all these years. Like it's my mainstay. And I've gone to like 6 retreats now. And I actually, when I first started with Vipassana, and I heard that there were 20-day retreats and 30-day retreats and 45-day retreats, 60, 90, I was like, what? That's insane. And now I've done the practice for so long that I have a seed planted within me to do the 20-day. I have one more requirement that I need. They have requirements. So I have one more requirement that's needed. And I also have to set my business up in such a way where I can step away for 20 days. So I'm not there yet. Until then, I'm going to continue to do the 10 days. But it's interesting what comes up in the mind when you go into silence, because we're so out all the time, our senses are engaged, our ego's engaged, and it's really about quieting the ego and allowing what's in the subconscious mind to finally come to the surface. It's a challenging practice, but it's very, very insightful.
Agree 100%. And for your audience, I will tell them I started with 2 minutes. And even that, I wasn't sure I could shut my mind for 2 minutes. And I've learned over the years, it's not even about shutting your mind, because your mind does it. Like we're constantly what they call the monkey mind. The whole idea is just learning to sit with yourself. And as the thoughts come in, which they will, and then to allow them to dissipate. I started with 2 minutes and couldn't do it. And so I did a year of guided meditation. A year of guided meditation with the nice woman in my head. And I worked up to 20 minutes. And then after a year of that, and I'm just giving the audience an option between 10 days and 2 minutes. And then I went to unguided meditation, to where now I could sit for 15 to 20 minutes unguided. And the benefits to me, which again, I never thought I could shut my mind for 30 seconds. It has been life-changing for me. The benefits I notice, which is why I continue to meditate, is I notice more humility. I notice more patience. I notice more tolerance. I notice an easier to be proactive rather than reactive, more love, more peace. There are tangible benefits to life when you take as little as 15 minutes a day to sit in silence. It is quite remarkable.
Yeah, it is. I agree with you. So whether you choose to do 5 minutes, 15 minutes, I was listening to a podcast over the weekend, and the gentleman I was listening to, he does 2 hours a day. But there's there's lots of options. Just like in the personal development space, there's lots of options. The thing is to just get curious and start to follow your curiosity and try stuff. Like try and see what, you know, what works, what doesn't work. You try something for 30 days and you feel like nothing really changed for you, try something else, right? You know?
Yep. In the book, I do a whole chapter on mindfulness and personal development. I start with reading. I talk a little bit about audiobooks if people don't dig reading. I talk about journaling. I talk about yoga. I talk about vision boards. And then I even talk about something I call you kindness, which isn't by definition strictly personal development, but things that I enjoy that fall under you kindness. I like fresh flowers in the house, spa time when we could do it safely, you know, mani-pedi or a massage, taking a walk out in the park, you know, just taking that time, even as simple as turning on a favorite song and spending a few minutes to listen. So you kindness is also a type of personal development.
So there's two more things I want to hit on. And I just also want to make sure, how long is the passage that you want to read?
Oh, it's just a brief passage if you want to hear a little reading.
Okay. So a lot of times people have resistance to getting creative because life is busy, life is full. And so you're busy, you're a coach, you're a speaker, you're in demand. So how did you make the space? Because it's a choice. We're talking a lot about choice in how we live our life and how we start our days and how we get up from obstacles that take us down. And so how did you choose to create space in your day to write a book?
Like you say, it was a choice, right? So I made the time. When I look at top achievers, you know, I work with a lot of highly successful people. One thing that they have in common is they make a choice to do something. So I chose to write the book. And so once I made that choice, I did my time block, right? So for me, it was early morning. I'm a morning person anyway. So I got up for 9 months. I got up at 4 a.m. because I learned some people like to write in chunks of time and other people like to fit in an hour here and there. I am a chunker. I learned that I like to sit down and have a reasonable period of time. So I get up at 4 in the morning and it's the middle of the night. And I also learned that it's the attitude, how I reframed that effort. I didn't get up and go, shit, it's the middle of the night, it's dark outside. Oh my gosh, I had to write today. Oh no. I went into it. I would stop outside my office door. And before I would come in, you're learning, I'm really do my best to reframe and control my thoughts. So before I would come in to write early in the morning, I would say, who knows what fascinating stuff is going to come out of my head today, right? So that put me in the mindset to come in here and sit down and write instead of, I got to write today. So it was a choice to joyfully live up to my commitment and to find the discipline to see it through. I'm keen on discipline. In fact, I tell you, Julie, I think the two reasons why more people don't achieve a goal or are not experience success at the level they want, because they're choosing to lack in discipline and self-accountability.
I don't know if I heard you say it or I heard someone else say it, that discipline actually gives you freedom.
I'd agree. Two things I really am keen on: discipline and accountability. Definitely. The discipline to do the things I say I want to do, and the self-accountability to make it happen and or take responsibility when I make a mistake. Accountability to live up to everything I say and do. Like, it's, to me, in Leslie language, it's about walking through the world the way as the woman I choose to be.
Yeah. And I would almost say that having the discipline, saying that you want to do X, Y, Z, and then following through with it, it gives you, it's a form of personal respect and self-love, you know. And when we don't live up to what we say, and there's so many people, we have so many examples where people do not honor their word. But when you are someone who is a person of integrity and you honor your word, not only with others, but yourself, you can walk with your head really high, because you know that and also you know that if something happens, because life happens, you're ready to take responsibility if for whatever reason you did not create what it is that you wanted to create.
Yep, agree. The entire book is, that can sum it all up, truly, about finding the courage to be the person you want to be and having the tools and the concepts and the strategies to empower yourself to make it happen. And that sums up Outrageous Achievement. I mean, this entire conversation sums it up beautifully.
Okay, so I'll read us an excerpt before we wrap up. We got like 3 more minutes.
Yep, I'll read real quickly. So just a little excerpt, because based on everything we're talking about, doing something great with your life. So the title of this segment, it's just 3 paragraphs. The title of this segment is Just One Tiny Spark. Stop and think for a moment. Do you have an impassioned idea that you just can't shake? I want you to capture it, research it, and follow the instinct that awoke something in your soul. If something is calling you, be curious and discover the possibilities. Read a book, watch a YouTube video, take a class. This is a proactive process. Give yourself permission to embrace the idea and explore it. We all have interests and activities that light us up, that we wish we were experiencing more often, and yet we don't make them a priority. When one tiny spark could lead you to a new and more fulfilling life. So when you choose to pursue and live your passion, that's when you will be the happiest you can possibly be. Because at the end of life, people don't regret that they didn't work enough. They regret that they didn't live enough. By prioritizing your passions, you make a commitment to live your best life.
Yeah. It's all about living your best life. So how can people find this wonderful book? How can I find this wonderful book so that I can get it pronto?
It's on Amazon. The ebook is available right now on Amazon. It's the easiest, fastest way to get it. And if they want to follow me, they can follow me. We're starting to do some really cool things on Instagram at Leslie.Zann. I'm going to begin doing some interviews and turning my book tour that isn't happening because of the pandemic. We're starting to do virtual book tours every week, and that's going to be happening. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, or you can find out more about me on the website at LeslieZann.com.
So Zann is
Z-A-N-N.
How do the Canadians say it? Is it Z?
Z. Yep. Z-A-N-N. And I made that name up.
Oh, did you?
I did. After my divorce, I wasn't going to keep my married name, and I wasn't going to go back to my maiden name because they're both very complicated, hard to spell names. And as a speaker, I thought I want a simple name. So in numerology, there are 3 abundance letters, H, Q, and Z. My given name is Leslie Ann, and I love Leslie Ann. So I put a Z, an abundance letter, in front of my middle name, and I legally changed my name to Leslie Zann, and I love it.
That's brilliant. So I think on that note, you can create whatever you want. You can create abundance. You can make up whatever names you want for yourself as well. I encourage you to go out and get Leslie's book. Thank you so much for joining me today, Leslie. Truly an honor.
Julie, it was a pleasure. I wish you continued success, my friend. Thank you.
Talk soon.